How are we doing, class? Guess what? We are 2 weeks in. This is our first video. I just got back from China yesterday. Still recovering a little bit. Lots of China stories, but not now. What I want to do today is walk through how this class is going to operate. Specifically, in our first module, market orientation, how does this whole thing work? So, you and your team, as you can see, we have teams, Bezos, Nadella's, Reed Hastings. You guys did your notes as a team and you posted questions as a team. What I'm going to do right now is article by article go through all the questions. Now it looks like there is a ton of questions here. You know, I got 5 pages of questions. Let's see, how many words is that? 2,183 words. But in reality, many of these questions overlap with each other, and once I answer a few, they will go pretty quickly. All right? So that's my story. You ready? Let me check something real quick. Okay. Before we get into the questions, let me say one more thing. We're starting with market orientation purposely. And I'm going to apologize now because between here and the end of July, I'm going to say MO, which is short for market orientation, about 6,000 times. In my opinion, this is the fundamental strategy for business. Period. Now, there are multiple different ways of talking about what is market orientation or calling it. As a matter of fact, the second article is exactly that. Someone else calling the same kind of thing market orientation. He's calling it inside-out approach. Okay? But we'll get to that. All right. Now, the last thing I want to bring up is this article here, the first one. Jenny was actually a student just like you in this class, and shortly after the class was over, she sent me an email, and instead of just writing the email, I decided to turn it into a blog post. And the email was down below. We're going to answer some of the questions here. I've been talking about market orientation for a long time. It's been developed in the marketing literature since the early 90s. You know, it's a really, really, really big deal. All right, let's stop talking here and let me get it straight into the questions. So, Team Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, richest guy on the planet. What company seems to have the best internal communications? Why are they so successful at this compared to others? Well, I think, Amazon's really good at it, but it's this guy right here, Reed Hastings at Netflix. You want to talk about a data-driven approach to making decisions? I don't think anyone does it better than Netflix. They use the data to make all decisions. There's no conflicts. It's the right thing to do because the data tells them what to do, not some internal politics, outside in. Wouldn't most companies be considered market-driving firms? No. As a matter of fact, both the second article and me telling you right now, I would be surprised if 2 out of 10 are market-driven firms. It seems as everybody's looking to create something new and revolutionary to help customers. Well, sure they are. But look at the auto industry. Take any industry. Let's take the auto industry. Buick. Are they market driving? No, they are not. Lincoln? No. Ford isn't even. Ford's not, other than maybe trucks. Chevy's not. There's some exceptions here and there, but not really. I mean, I would say Tesla is. Nissan is not. Alfa Romeo is not. Even Mercedes-Benz is playing a little catch-up here. Very few firms are market driving. Very few. 2 out of 10, if that. 1 out of 5. Okay, Team Nadella. How can market, by the way, just little I'm not yelling at Team Nadella here. It's market orientation, not marketing. It's one of my main issues with the two articles that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. Market, not marketing. This is not a marketing thing. This is strategy from the corporation, not the marketing department. How can a market-oriented company expect to be successful in marketing with so many hands directing marketing activities? Well, it's not just marketing activities. It's marketing, it's finance, it's IT, it's accounting, it's strategy, it's operations, it's supply chain management. See, if the firm is market-oriented and we are looking at competition and we are looking at customer behavior and we're letting them guide what we should do, then it's pretty easy for the company to make the right decision. If we look at it from an inside out, and when we're tied up in silos and politics, and we do what's politically best for our own careers, then it's very difficult for any silo to have a hand in directing any activity. It all comes down to politics, and I don't like politics. Dr. Dano said firms do the first two characteristics well, but why don't the firms communicate internally well? Because of politics. It's very simple. Firms do what's in their own best interest. People and silos and departments do what's in their own best interest. So while the marketing department sees the customer information, if the marketing department doesn't share well with finance or operations or accounting or management, or they do share well and no one listens, because of politics or because of silos or because of power structures internal to the firm, internal things make communication not do well. I have a lot more on this, but I'm going to save it for future questions. Is there a one-size-fit-all approach to marketing as it pertains to market-driven as opposed to market-driving? No. There's been a number of questions similar to exactly this market-driven versus market-driving. Okay. You can be market-driven. Market-driven is very much similar to the definition of market orientation. Market-driving is not. Tesla is market-driving. Apple is market-driving. These are companies that change the marketplace. There are other companies that don't change the marketplace but do a very good job of listening to customers and looking at competition and doing well in their industry. You could say Walmart is market driving because of the way they changed pricing and the way that they changed the supply chain. But Target is market driven. They're very successful in what they do, but they didn't really change the industry much. See that? If you're market driving, by definition, you're market driven. But you could be market driven without being market driving. Think of this as like a higher level, level 2. Okay? As a startup company, how should you approach the marketing aspect of business? This is a little general, but I don't care whether you're a startup company or I don't care whether you're Ford or Walmart. If you are not oriented towards the market and looking at competition and looking at consumer behavior and adapting to it well, you're not going to survive. I don't care if you're a startup company. I don't care if you're JCPenney's who's going to go under, or Sears, which is going to go under, or Macy's, which is going to close another 250 stores this year. Those companies are not adapting to modern omni-channel retailing. That's a module in a couple weeks. All right, Team Hastings. How can small companies afford to be market-driven? They don't have a choice. By definition, they have to be market-driving or they're not going to survive. It's probably even more important for small companies, and sometimes it's probably easier to do it in smaller companies because there's less employees, everybody knows each other, it's a flatter organization, and small companies only survive if they can provide something to the marketplace. It's not like they have legacy. Do they need to have core companies to maintain a market-driven philosophy? Well, of course. A core competency of collecting proper data to make the right decisions, yes. A core competency to listening and making changes, yes. Yes. It seems only companies that are truly innovative think Apple creating the iPhone iPod can contain a market-driving company. No. Not truly innovative, but certainly leading. I mean, I don't think what Walmart did was innovative in terms of technology, but they changed pricing and they changed the supply chain, and they are a market-driving company, and they still are. I just got back from China, and Walmart's a pretty big presence over there. That's not really innovation. That's just market driving. All right, Team Tim Cook. Speaking of Apple, out of curiosity, does a large clothing chain rebrand itself, or rather finally defining their brand, to establish their place in a niche area, that's probably what it meant to say instead of niche, of the market, lean towards more market-driven perspective or market-driving? Hey, if you can be market-driving, guess what? Be market-driving. It's the higher order. Market-driven, sure, if you can survive. But let's take some retailing and clothing, because maybe this interests some specific person on Team Cook. Zara, okay? I would say they're more market-driving. The way that they organize the factories and look at consumer information and don't put as much clothing in the store, let stuff sell out, and then within 4 weeks, instead of doing the high-low pricing, just bring more stuff in. They don't do 4 cycles a year. They do 9 to 12. Zara is pretty interesting. They use data to make decisions. They use data to decide which clothing, they'll bring clothing in for 2 weeks, look at the data, and decide how much more of that clothing they're going to bring in or not. And then within a week, they can manufacture it, ship it, and put it in all the stores. Week to 10 days. That is market driving. How difficult is it for a company to move from market-driven to a market-driving if the company's on the path the company wants to go to? Well, there's a lot of factors that go into this. For instance, how much competition is in the market, how much innovation is needed, how much capital expenditure. For a smaller company, it could be easy to go from market-driven to market-driving. For a bigger company like Boeing, it's going to take a while. IBM, it's going to take a while. Speaking of IBM, this is the CEO of IBM. Is there more market pressure on companies that are market-driven versus a company like Southwest, which is more market-driving, versus a company like Southwest, which is more market-driven? Is there more market pressure? I don't know how to answer this question, because a lot of the market-driving companies tend to be in a significantly better position in their specific industry. Say Apple. Say entertainment, and the companies are here, but there's say Netflix. If we look in healthcare and CVS uses the data to make their decisions. Is there more market pressure on them? Maybe there's more attention to them because they're the leader of their respective industry. Market pressure? Maybe instead of market pressure, say market attention. And then I would be pretty happy, and I would agree. All right, Team Ramadati, Ginny. The original tech company, IBM. What would be an example of a firm both market-driven as well as market-driving? I already answered this one. A market-driving company is market-driven, but a market-driven company is not necessarily market-driving. Team Zuckerberg, last question for MO. There are risks for companies that possess functional silo. Would you say are there any benefits to silos? There are some benefits to silos. The benefits, I would say it's more like low-hanging fruit. Silos are easier to organize. Silos are easier to understand. Silos are easier to structure. Silos are easier to manage. Silos are easier to set up. That said, silos are not better. They're just easier. Conceptually, we get it. That's the finance department. That's the marketing department. That's the operations department. If you have an inside-out perspective, silos make sense. But guess what? Your silos are not going to keep you in business. Your interaction with customers and your interaction vis-a-vis competition is whether you're going to stay in business or not. And silos have nothing to do with that. You know, it would be the equivalent of saying, my strategy is a functional strategy. Well, because they're functional silos. Well, finance doesn't have a strategy, and marketing doesn't have a strategy. You know, operations doesn't have a strategy. The corporation has a strategy to make money. Okay. Second article, Inside Out Approach to Customer Service. I included this one because in a very, very recent academic-y discussion within the last year, there's been calls for papers using this phrase inside out. Okay? And I was looking for a non-academic-y article to send in your direction, and I came up with this one from Harvard Business Review. Now, don't get too hung up with dates. You know, the articles serve a means for me to talk about a particular topic. Who cares when they were written, and who cares about the dates around them? All right? As a matter of fact, I gave you the short version of my blog, Market Orientation, instead of on the syllabus. Let's go back to the syllabus. Marketing Managed. A bonus article. This is the original article of what the hell is market orientation. This was really the first market orientation article from 1988. We're still talking about it now. Now, this article is dated. It's kind of long. He doesn't do as a good of job as I did in a shorter blog post describing the level 1, level 2, and 3 interfirm communication. So I just gave you my blog article. But if you want to go back to read the original, it's there. Okay? All right, that said, let's see about this inside out, his version of MO. Is there a point where a company can become too customer centric? I don't believe there is. I do not believe there is. We feel like there needs to be a healthy balance on focusing on customers that provide your current products. No. I disagree wholeheartedly. I'm shifting the mindset. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm telling you from my perspective, the mindset needs to shift. The company doesn't make money unless they do well vis-a-vis customers and competition. Okay? You then orientate your products to do well in the marketplace versus competition and the needs and wants of customers. All right? Can you be too customer-centric? No. What company needs to change its philosophy to save itself from going under? Oh my God. Where should we begin? Let's pick an industry. I already did retailing for you. Autos? My God, there's a lot of auto industry companies that are barely afloat, isn't there? I mean, Fiat is barely there. Chrysler is barely there. Let's see. Let's pick another. Computers, okay? Let's see. Dell needed to go private in order to somewhat save itself under public pressure. But I don't see many of the other hardware companies doing all that well. What about cell phone service plans? I mean, Verizon's kind of okay. AT&T is kind of okay. They're not going to go under because they're so profitable. Let's see. Network television. They're going to go under. Let's see. What we'll do is, as we keep talking through this module, I'll come up with more examples for you, okay? The retailing industry is a really big one, though. Oh, they're in deep, deep trouble. Okay. Pichai, CEO of Google. Team Pichai. How far is a company willing to invest in their customers' everyday needs? How far is a company in order to produce long-term profits? You will get long-term profits if you satisfy customer needs. This is the MO view of thinking about it. This is the MO mindset. Customers first, vis-a-vis competition, then you get yours. If you try to get yours before you deliver, someone else will cut you off in the meantime. Okay? What are new and effective ways for retail companies to connect with customers at the same time and make sales? It's all digital. Okay, we're going to talk about omnichannel. We're going to do a whole module on this. But the idea of having separate retail channels for digital and face-to-face is ridiculous. All right, I'm not wearing them right now, but this is Warby Parker. Okay, Warby Parker is agnostic to how they sell you stuff, whether it's digital or not digital. Both the physical store and the online store are completely 100% integrated. Warby Parker is an anomaly. You know, Target's getting better. In other words, you can buy on Target, return at the store. You could buy on the store. You can go to the store and order. They're linking your customer account better. Walmart's really not all that great at digital. As a matter of fact, just within the last year, what they purchased a bunch of companies. Most recently, Jet.com for over $1 billion, a company that wasn't even profitable. They've tried to make Walmart.com a profitable thing, and it's just not working out well. Do the majority of companies in today's marketplace put more emphasis on customer service? No. The majority of the firms in today's marketplace are inside out, and they survive despite themselves. Okay? And when we have things like financial meltdowns, they don't survive. They don't survive. Look at Saturn. Saturn went under. You know, they tried to emphasize customer service, but their cars, you know, even if they emphasize customer service in the dealership, the cars didn't compete with other offerings from other companies, including their own brands, General Motors' own brands. What industries have to be focused on customer service? You know, what industries do not have to be focused on customer service? If you want to survive and you're not oriented towards the market, I don't know how that's going to happen. I really don't. You need to be MO or you're not going to survive. Period. Okay, Nadella, that's Satya, Microsoft CEO. This article frequently focuses the silo. What exactly is the structure of the business? The structure of the business is how it's physically built. How many layers of management are there between the bottom layer and the top layer? How is the business organized? Here's a perfect example. And granted, we keep talking about Apple because right now they're doing really well, so we need to use them as an exemplar. Apple.com, if you go to Apple.com, there's the WWDC. Apple leadership. If you look at Apple's leadership, this is the senior leadership: CEO, legal, retail, internet software and services, software engineering, design, CFO, hardware engineering, marketing, hardware engineering, COO. Okay? The next level down, communications, PR, environment, China, marketing, HR. That's it. What you don't see is, even though iPhone is 2/3 of the revenue, there's no senior vice president of iPhone. There's no senior vice president of iOS. There's no senior vice president of Mac. There's no senior vice president of iPod. If there was a senior vice president of iPod, that silo would have fought tooth and nail to keep iPod alive, even though the marketplace says that there was no need for an iPod when you have this. Because it's self-preservation within your silo. It's your job. You're the senior vice president of iPod. Your job is to keep iPod alive. You will focus on resources to keep iPod alive. If you have someone who's just in charge of software, someone who's just in charge of hardware, and someone who's just in charge of marketing, they're making the best decisions for Apple, not a product. They're not siloed. Apple's not siloed. They're a very flat organization up top, even though they're really, really big. When a company decides to take this approach, is it best to start an intensive marketing research to determine your customer needs? Even more than just marketing research. Okay, marketing research is primary data, secondary data, reports, But in my opinion, you need to use your internal data, your customer data. We're going to do satisfaction, loyalty, and CRM, and we're going to get into this discussion very greatly. But this is also a digital class. You can buy a social media listening tool like Radian6 or Trax or Sprout Social or Social Mention, and I don't know. There's only 1 billion tweets and 1 billion messages on Facebook every day. How are you not collecting that information about your company and all your competitors and your industry every day? Tag clouds. Do you think it's a good idea to have an outside-in approach about business from its very conception? Yes. Or is that easier said than done? I think it's the only way for you to survive. It's not, should I do it or should I not? It's, do I want to survive or do I not? The article focuses on the outside-in approach. There must be plenty of companies in the marketplace that operate in the inside-out approach. Why do some companies get away with using this strategy and still remain successful? Well, we can define successful in many different ways. If you look at Microsoft between 1990 and 2000, they were bulletproof. Okay, they really were. If you could look at them between 1990, 2000, and 2010, they were not bulletproof. They certainly became inside out. They missed music players. They missed the internet and web browsing. They missed cell phones, even though they had the largest market share. Them and BlackBerry were 80% of the market between 2002 and 2008. And they still missed touchscreens and operating systems and apps. They lost track of what was happening in the marketplace around them. How did they survive? Well, they had a lot of cash on hand, and they could buy a lot of companies and waste tons of money like they did with Nokia. Some company has the resources to survive. Many companies, and look at the financial industry in 2008, look at the auto industry in 2008, they don't have the resources to survive. Regardless of people calling to Apple's doom or not, no one has more cash on hand than Apple. They're sitting on somewhere in the neighborhood of like $270 billion in cash and cash equivalents on their balance sheet. Okay? I don't care how many spaceship headquarters they build. It would take them a very, 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 very long time, even if they weren't profitable for 10 years, to burn through $270 billion in cash. The article discussed the B2B side of using this approach through the JLL example. Is it still safe to assume that being outside in and having customer capacity is more important for B2C companies, or is it? I don't care if it's B2B or B2C or C2C. I really don't care. B2B companies, I probably need to be, usually B2B is even more cutthroat. All right, Team Hastings. What are the most unique ways you have seen corporations foster interdepartment communication? By killing the silo. Why is there a marketing department and a finance department and an IT department? Both in the 2 articles that are coming up in this module, and especially articles towards the end of the semester, we're going to see the abdication of merging of silos. Okay? How many times organizations suffer from having too many meetings? Many times they suffer from too many meetings. How would you suggest enhancing meetings and communication without fostered all the time? There's a CEO from the company used to be called Basecamp. Now they're called 37 Signals. I've heard him on at least a dozen podcasts. Okay? They hate meetings, and they do everything impossible to avoid them. As a matter of fact, their company, which created one of the first Slack-like communication things, that's the way to have a meeting, through interconnected thread. Most people are productive between 9 and noon in the morning. Why am I going to schedule a meeting to reduce your productivity during that time? Companies should reduce meetings by, 80%, limit to them, and have them make the case that a meeting should happen even at all. Because every time you have a meeting, you suck over people's time and you reduce productivity of the entire corporation. I'm an anti-meeting guy. General Electric did some neat tricks where meetings weren't allowed to be more than 45 minutes. Everyone had to stand, and if you couldn't have an agenda produced before the meeting started, the meeting would get canceled. So you wouldn't waste anybody's time. Might have been wrong by how long the meeting is. It might be shorter, but everybody had to stand. They're standing meetings. If you have a sitting meeting, you stay there longer. Focusing on the second level of the outside-in maturation process, it's fair to assume that most companies fall into this bucket. Maybe. Creating talk tracks around customers falsely provides leadership with being more customer-focused and being more... In this case, do you feel that some central customers lacking or inspire customers mindsets? This guy went into level. He's a Harvard Business Review professor. He's really bright. He wrote a pretty solid book. I haven't read it yet, but it sold well. All right? Don't get hung up on the levels. Who cares? The fact is, you have to do it. In other words, you have to accept that data coming from the outside should drive all decisions. First level, second level, third level. I don't care how you get to it. Should there be 3 levels, not 4, 2? Don't get caught up in that. Just have the mindset of being oriented towards the market and figure out a way that works for your company to accomplish that goal. Team Cook. If the true outside-in approach is knowing more about customers and their ultimate needs of your products, is it as easy as beginning or continuing customer questionnaires and interactions to find solutions towards an outside-in company? I know from the article there's more to do to this, but starting up can help transform a business. Well, it doesn't have to be just customer questionnaires and interactions, okay? Your own internal data stream is just as important, and I already said it, using social and digital is just as important. I'm not going to limit the use of questionnaires or interactions with actual consumers, but you need to take in multiple data sources in order to be an outside-in company. If you want one weakness of his article, I think one weakness is he doesn't talk about all the various types of data that could come into the company. And 2, his only success metric is market share value. You know, is that really the only success metric you want? Do you see the size of companies or being a reason why that a company never makes it from level 1 to level 4? No. Look, IBM, which is a monster tech company and has been around since the 50s, okay, has reoriented itself twice since 1990 in a major significant way. The whole corporation. So I don't care about the size of the company. It can be done if you are forced to do it. Okay? I have not read his book either. I may be poorly equipped to understand his argument. I don't think you are. But I feel that based on his article, his methodology is not sound. I don't care whether his methodology is not sound. The premise is sound. The data stops at 2007. Okay? That's probably good for him because it was before the financial meltdown, and therefore cannot include data from the recession, and this process of choosing cases seems slightly biased. Does this get addressed in the book or another interview? No. It could be, and it's not important to be direct. You know what I mean? The more important thing is that you see that the concept of market orientation can be translated or said in other business type jargon. Is there a hypothetical line, this is Team Ramadi, between using marketing to effectively and respectively inquire about individual customer taste prying into their personal life? All right. Let's be direct here. I am not a fan of what's happening in Silicon Valley with regards to user agreements, terms agreements, and the amount of information they know about us. For all intents and purposes, we have no privacy. We gave it up. Whether we wanted to or not, it's kind of late now to start talking about it, but yes. Does that mean I'm throwing my hands up? No. I'm a much bigger fan of what happens in the EU, that you have to opt in for people to track you as opposed to figuring out a way to opt out, which is what Facebook and Twitter and Google. Google and Facebook really are the two worst, okay, with regards to using your personal information, quote unquote, against you. This is a topic that's going to come up a lot this semester. I'm okay with a company like Netflix if I opt in and agree and it stays within Netflix. I'm okay if, even with Facebook, as much as they know about us, if we opt in, but we're not opting in. They didn't give us a choice. Okay? There's no levels. There's some privacy settings, but they're not really all that great. It's a big issue. I tell you, if you want to make a lot of money, become a consultant on this. Because it's a really, really big topic of conversation right now. What kind of investments are needed to transition from an outside-in orientation? Believe it or not, I think it's more of a mindset philosophy, and the investment's more in people and leadership. I don't think there's a ton of crazy investments needed. How small business can make these changes without substantial investments? Okay, maybe there's some investment, and we're going to get to CRM and CRM software and CRM thinking. Okay, we're going to get to that. When we started the CRM conversation way back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, this was a very expensive, very, very expensive proposition. We had to buy servers, we had to create custom software, we had to do all kinds of things. You were anywhere, a low budget CRM data collection kind of thing was 2 to 3 million, mid-tier 5 to 6, 10 to 15 million was an easy goal to achieve. And that's just the hardware, let alone the training and the people and all the other stuff. Today's day and age with apps, we have Salesforce. I mean, my gosh, $30 a month. You don't need any servers. You don't need to store the data. Salesforce does the analysis for you. It is a totally different ballgame these days. I mean, small businesses with 130 employees can spend $1,500 a month for Salesforce. All right, last set of questions before we get to article number 3. Besides Apple, what would you say is the best market driving company of the past decade? Amazon is one of the best market driving companies of the past decade. Netflix is one of the best driving companies of the past decade. In B2B and what they do, I would say IBM. In social, I would say Facebook and Google. Do you have any prediction who might be one of the next ones? I tend to look at the smaller companies, that are changing. I keep going back to retail. The Dollar Shave Clubs, the Warby Parkers, the Caspers, these smaller companies that are changing business practice by focusing on the relationship as opposed to just a transaction. Do organizations need to commit to one of these approaches that can simply put factors from both outside in and inside out? I don't think there is any inside out for sustainable future. You do inside out because you're stuck. You do inside out because your company's not good enough. But if your company's good enough, you're outside in. The outside in companies are market driving. Inside in companies are rarely market driving. In collaboration in a business culture, with silos among teams or departments are usually limited to and from what I've seen. Okay, let me reread this. Collaboration in a business culture with silos amongst teams or departments is usually limited, I agree, and from what I've seen, often difficult. I totally agree because of politics and making sure I take care of myself and or my team. We fight for resources. That's what we do. The article mentions bridging the silos. Yes. Do you have any thoughts or visions how to properly go about this? Yes, get rid of them. How about this? If you want to keep your silos, just make every silo have 3 members from all the other silos on it. Do cross-functional silos. Have the silo be, instead of focused around a function like marketing or a product like iPhone, have it around a process within your company like profitability or customer data or something that would take the company one step further. All right, let me pause for 1 second. All right, now in our last 2 articles, these are true Harvard Business Review articles. The first 2 articles in this module were more to frame the module and get you going. All right, neither the market-driven article or the next article, which I argue with myself whether they should be in the beginning of the class or the end of the class. I have some at the end of the class that could be in the beginning of class. I have these that could be, but regardless of that, neither one of these 2 articles mention the term market orientation in them. But the idea of this decision-driven marketing is MO. The idea of the ultimate marketing machine is MO. Which, by the way, in the second article, I have a problem with it. Marketing machine. It should be market machine. But that's another story. All right, let's get to some of these. Team Bezos. How do you ensure when mining the seams that people understand their role and stay within the boundaries of such long term? Is it necessary to have a team leader on every project to do so? No, it's not necessarily a team leader on every project to do so. But if the goals and the directions of the entire corporation are understood and the vision is understood, I mean, this is standard strategy 101. The seams, they spend a lot of time in this article on the seams. But if the data is coming in saying you need to do A, well, then all the departments together need to figure out a way to accomplish A. Can the decision X-ray and reset theory be used in Ariel other than just decisions in marketing? Well, again, this article's weakness is it keeps focusing on the marketing instead of the market. That's my issue with both of these articles, is they keep thinking that in order to change the corporation, the change has to come from within the marketing department. I don't agree with that. Okay? I think the market should make us change the corporation. All the functions within, including marketing, including operations, including finance, including accounting. When doing a redesign, do jobs go away or completely do the roles just change? Should we all be prepared for such changes in all lines of work down the line with the changing environment we live in? How fast does this typically occur? In the U.S. marketplace, especially just coming back from China, and then I spend a decent amount of time in Europe teaching as well, okay? Our marketplace moves very fast. When I say fast, I'm talking about the job marketplace. In today's day and age, we no longer have a lifetime commitment to a corporation. As a matter of fact, staying for 3 to 5 years at any company is now considered long term. Very few people do that anymore. There is no such thing as a lifer, right? Our age, everyone on this chat right now, you should think about every 3 to 5 years, you're going to switch companies and switch jobs, either within the company or between companies. It's going to happen. And most people don't even wait 3 years. No. Is there any time to process this article? Is there a time the process this article talks about did not work? There's a lot of times when this process doesn't work. Is there a specific field this actually would not apply to? They seem to not only have positive examples. Okay. This process will not work with inside-out companies. So to answer your first question, is there a specific field this actually would not apply to? There are many. The most obvious one is government. Okay, because government doesn't have to be responsive to the marketplace. They're so self-centered. I really don't like politics. But they are so vested in their own interests, and they don't have to answer to anybody. So it doesn't apply to politics. It also applies less to industries that are highly, highly regulated, like health, that involves like FDA, and there's structural barriers. The legal industry, it's harder to be more oriented towards the marketplace because there's internal friction, internal limits. You know, they because they got to make their points. That's why there's only positive articles here. All right. Sunjay, Team Sunjay here. How does a company decide which channel to market in, i.e. print versus digital versus TV? Okay. The company should not decide what channel to market in. The data should tell them what channel to market in. Their customer information, where are their customers? If their customers tell you should be in traditional marketing vehicles like television, you should be in traditional marketing vehicles like television. If the data tells you you should be moving away from traditional and shifting your marketing dollars to digital, which are tracking, easily track, and are more ROI oriented, then guess what? That's how we make these decisions. That's how a company decides. We use the data to tell us. What new IT technology is in the pipeline that will enable companies to reach customers? This is a little vague, but let's talk about this. So we need both information gathering technology. We need technologies that will help us in the customer service side. We need technologies that will facilitate transactions. We could go really long for this. I mean, if you want to talk about supply chain and you're not talking about blockchain, then we're not having a conversation about what's coming in the near future. If you're talking about customer service and we're not talking about AI, then you're not talking about the future. What are most companies ensuring marketing is working cooperatively with their IT? Are most companies ensuring? No, they're not. Most companies are not market oriented. Most companies are not outside in. Most companies do not work cross-functionally. They really don't. They don't. I'm seriously saying 80% of all the companies out there are inside-out firms. Seriously. All right, Team Satya, Nadella, Microsoft. Given the success of collaborative efforts between different departments, does it make sense to introduce collaborations from the very beginning? Yes. Absolutely. From the beginning and always. I'm an MO guy. Is there a utility in collaborating between IT and marketing in the design and marketing research? Is there a utility? Is there a usefulness? Yes. And it shouldn't just be IT and marketing. It should be IT, marketing, finance, and operations. It shouldn't be just these two. You know, the articles, this is a weakness of the article. Out of the 3 cross-organizational decisions listed in the article, which one holds the most weight in organizational needs and all departments cited all together? All right. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember all 3 of the decisions. I don't know which holds the most weight, to be honest with you. And I don't think there's just 3 cross-organizational decisions that need to be made. Deciding how to decide the task in and of itself. How do companies decide what does what and how? I'm not trying to be a broken record here, but some companies focus on the process of how we do this internally. Okay, the idea bubbles up this way. These are the number of people that are involved. Then it goes to level 2. Then a senior VP signs off on it, and then it gets the resources it needs. That was a 3-month process. Okay? All in the time that's happening, your competitor came up with 3. One competitor came up with 2 new products, and one competitor came up with 3 new products. And while you're trying to decide how to make a decision, competition around you is not stopped. You need a way for the external data to come in and for the corporation to be able to react quickly about this data. Okay? Google does that very well. Netflix does that very well. Facebook does that very well. IBM is doing this very well now. Is it the position that gives people the authority to make decisions? Unfortunately, it is. And unfortunately, this is the way corporations are structured. And unfortunately, that leads to politics, and unfortunately that leads to silos, and unfortunately that is all the inside out. I'm going to tell you right now, and some of you in this class are already leaders, just because you're a leader Just because you have the corner office, just because you have authority, just because you have the paycheck, doesn't mean anyone's going to do what you tell them to do. It's not what leadership is. We're going to do a whole module on leadership in a couple weeks. All right. Agile management and methodologies. All right. This is another buzzword term that is very much, not even on the fringes of MO, but very much, if you looked at overlapping circles, there'd be a ton of overlap between this whole agile management methodologies and MO. Are becoming more prevalent in the workplace because they have to. It's the only way to survive in today's day and age. Have marketers used this methodology to create a marketing plan? Of course they have. Absolutely. Whether you want to call it agile, whether you want to call it MO, do some articles about, look, this is Hastings, Netflix. Netflix is unbelievable in the way they can, the focus on the algorithm to make better customer service and recommendations is unbelievable. Netflix is amazing. It's why they're doing so well. The article discusses both X-ray and decision reset. How often should a company revisit these decisions to decide whether they're still relevant or optimal? Well, how profitable are you? How often has the consumer's behavior changed around you? And what have your companies, your competitors have done in the marketplace? Some marketplaces with digital products change monthly. So, should you wait every 3 months to make a decision? No. Some industries like the auto industry is more of a 3 to 5 year window of when new cars come in the pipeline because it's a harder thing to make. This is like a 12 to 18 month window on the high side. That's it. Are the marketing seams naturally brought in and out of a firm, or do they need to be more reactive? Some firms on the inside out specifically set up the collaborations. They force the collaborations. Okay. I think it would be better if the stimulus was data and a CEO, he or she saying, okay, this is the information coming in from the industry. This is what we're going to be facing competitively in the next 3 to 6 months. How do we at least meet them or get ahead of them? And then, all this stuff about seams and, if that's the strategic direction from an outside in, then the corporation will rally around it and the seams will take care of themselves. Is there really a distinct difference between traditional and digital marketing, or is digital marketing just a traditional marketing in digital form? Oh God, this is a very big discussion. It's the entire course, as a matter of fact. So let me put this in briefly. Yes, digital is radically different than traditional. And I'll summarize it this way. There's no feedback loop in traditional. It's all one way. Remember we talked about the top-down world versus the bottom-up world? That's traditional. Digital is a feedback loop. Okay, and when you have a feedback loop, then we could talk about satisfaction, loyalty, CRM. We can talk about being MO because there's a feedback loop. The other big thing in digital marketing compared to traditional marketing is a huge conversation, but let me do it briefly. In digital marketing, you are both the promo channel and the transaction channel. In traditional marketing, the promo channel and the transactional channel are different channels. They're different things. They're different functions. They're separate from each other. In marketing, the promo and the transaction of actually making money is the same thing. It is an evolution. All right, I'm with you. It is an evolution. Facebook ads are just print ads, not on paper, and YouTube is just television. No. There is nothing similar to a Facebook ad compared to a print ad, and there's nothing similar to YouTube compared to a television commercial. No. The amount of data that you get out of a Facebook ad versus the amount of data you get out of a print ad is light years different. YouTube, television companies, here we are, we're in the upfronts right now. We just listened to a podcast about YouTube, okay? YouTube creates 15 different pilots for television shows that they want to put on YouTube Red. They put the pilots up to see which ones, metric-wise, are the fan base most interested in. And based on that, they decide to fund which shows they're actually going to make. Television companies in the traditional top-down world, they guess. They guess. They have no idea whether it's going to be a hit or not. And they probably overpay for talent, both the writers and they overpay for talent, the actors and actresses. Which department would marketing most likely have friction with? All of them. But really, it's a function of politics within a particular company. Marketing traditionally has usually the most friction with finance, because marketing likes to spend money, and the only way you get money is if you can make the case for that you're going to spend the money and get the return. So that would be finance. But this is inside out thinking. This is not the way we want to go. I don't want any friction with any of the silos. I want all the silos to disappear, because then there would be no friction. What skills would be most beneficial for skills in marketing analytics? Woo! Is a good question. I like that. Marketing analytics is the future. If we're going to be MO, if we're gonna have that external data stream decide all strategy, you better be really good in analytics, predictive analytics, algorithms, marketing research, AI. We're gonna get a little AI, a little database management stuff. Oh gosh. I mean, here's a good way to think about it. For decades and decades and decades, finance people have had these wonderful ratios to decide whether a company is healthy or not. You know, there's easily 25 to 30 we could easily off the top of our heads spit out and say, you know, quick ratio, debt to equity ratio. We can go through all these. Finance have had these analytics to analyze a company for years. Marketing's had market share analytics, and that's about it. You know, profitability, but that's not even a marketing thing. We have all kinds of very interesting metrics today. And most of them are being developed because we have the data stream coming in from digital. If someone's really interested in analytics, you guys shoot me an email. I gotta start sending you some links and books, recommendations, that kind of thing. Or maybe whoever wrote this question needs a marketing analytics or a marketing metrics, same thing, book to read for their end of semester book reflection paper. What is typically the best area to start with for most companies once they're aligned their strategy? Would it be IT? No, it would be CEO. You start with the CEO. Start from the top. He or she will decide. He or she will take the data coming in and with the board's approval will make the decision. No, IT is just a function. It's just a silo. No, you start from the top. With my experience, sales is focused on bringing in clients today and projecting revenue. Okay? What's the best way to approach the future strategy of sales while connecting with the tools of marketing? All right. I'm a sales guy. I was a sales guy before I was a digital guy. All right? I understand. And one of the things I'm doing right now is B2B social selling. The difference in sales and B2B social selling in the top-down world, salespeople, he or she would go out and find revenue. You would have to find the business. In a B2B social world, social selling, the business finds you. This is a big discussion. I have lots of white papers on this topic. The sales function, the salespeople function is changing because we used to be able to knock on doors and we used to be able to call people and we used to be able to create a funnel. Your funnel is dead. You can't funnel the way you used to funnel anymore. What is the first steps of minding the seams for it to be an enterprise? Getting an external data stream to find out what you should be actually doing with your business. All right, let me take a quick pause and we'll do our final article. All right, let's finish our last article, The Ultimate Marketing Machine. Again, I'm not a fan that it's being called marketing machine. It should be the ultimate market machine because I'm an MO guy. All right, Team Bezos says, for high-performing organizations, what is the most important principle of marketing approaches? Well, I think I've already answered this question. You know exactly what I'm going to say. Do marketing teams hire their own internal data analysts, or do they live in a different department and work in conjunction with the marketing team? We ask this because some of our team have to work with data analysts that are part of the other departments, which becomes a challenge as they also work for different projects or for others. Okay. I kind of get this question. So here's the issue. All right. And let's go back to this org chart. So there is no senior VP of iPhone here. Okay, there's only senior VP of software, and this is all software. Okay, there's 4 different software platforms for Apple. There's television, there's iOS, there's Mac, and I'm forgetting one. But they just had their big conference on Monday, and I didn't get the chance to watch it, but I read some articles. There's 4 software platforms that Apple has. And this gentleman here, he's a senior VP, is in charge of developing all 4 of those software platforms. And this gentleman right here is in charge of developing hardware, iPhone, Mac, TV, iPad, all of that for the various software. These 2 are talking a whole lot. As a matter of fact, their offices are probably right next to each other. This is a senior VP of hardware technologies, hardware engineering. I'm sure these guys work together a whole lot. Operations, we're talking about manufacturing here, so eventually these 2 have to talk to this guy as well. And they all talk to the person that sells everything. This is both online and physical and non-Apple. And then all the software such as iTunes and Beats, and this is all this gentleman right here. Okay? And then he drives the mothership. What's not here is, using this example, we need a senior VP in charge of data into the company. All right? There needs to be a data person at the leadership table. I don't have a problem with each team having a few analysts. That the data conversation that's going to drive strategy is happening at the highest level. What it sounds like here is you guys have these data people and they're getting shared, which I don't think is a problem. But the problem that I see is I don't see that the data people that are being shared have a voice at the top that can dictate strategy. I don't know if that directly answers your question or not, but I'm hoping it does. With advances in technology over the last 20 years, why has the marketing structure not evolved quicker? Because it's harder. It's so much harder. It is so much harder. Netflix is harder the way they use data to make decisions. It is harder than let's go back to retail. Let's look at drugstore chains. Okay? It is significantly easier to be Dwayne Reed here in the greater New York City area and just stack the shelves and watch it disappear, and you keep track of what's selling and what's not selling, and that's it. It is significantly harder to develop an individual relationship with each customer, keep data on them, provide individual offers that's only to that customer, and this is what CVS does with their loyalty card. I get coupons or I get recommendations for CVS that are specifically unique to me. That's harder to do. It's more expensive, but it's a better decision, and CVS is more profitable. So what do you want to be? On the verge of being taken over? Do you want to be a Rite Aid? I mean, Walgreens is pretty good. They do some stuff with their data. They have a very good retail presence. They have a very good supply chain. So you could call them, they're market oriented, but they're not market driving. And CVS is market driving. Understandably, organizations with agility gives company advantages. However, does a company incentive employees to be flexible, often non-traditional work environments? Okay. So, how do you incentivize employees to adhere to the flexible? It's survival. I mean, do we want to keep our job? The only way companies can stay ahead is if they continually reinventing themselves. This is the competitive world that we live in. Nothing can ever stay the thing. If you're not interested in change, you're not interested in survival. So, if companies have to incentivize their employee base constantly in order to change, there's a problem. They're going to spend so much money internally battling that monster that they're going to eventually lose track with competitors. They're eventually going to lose track with consumer behavior. They're eventually going to fall behind, and they're not going to survive. Or they're not going to be as profitable. Or they're not going to grow the way they want to grow. If an organization that has many brands and each has a different position and consumer message, does it hinder or slow down the ability for the organization to become unified and having a common message to all its customers? No. I don't think it does. No. Or do you not really want an overall congruence when you have a variety of brands? You can have an overall vision of what the company stands for: innovation, change, cutting edge. And then with each brand have a message saying, well, what does cutting edge mean for medical technologies? What does cutting edge mean for auto? What does cutting edge mean for energy? I'm real. I think we're good here. How does creating a reward system intrigue customers to spend more time and money in the short term versus the long term? Consumers, reward system. It's not just a reward system. It's a value proposition system. Okay, sure. If you pay customers all the time with discounts, if you pay them with, being the first one to be able to order new items, paying them. But really, it should be about the relationships, and you could keep going. The customer should keep going back to the company because the company does the best job vis-a-vis anyone out there. That's a value-driven model. The rewards are just part of it. If it's a reward system could be just carrot and stick, and if you're always there all the time with the carrot, you're never going to get your customer population to move on anything unless you pay them. Does Nike Plus think providing incentives for certain achievements or interpersonal fit will draw more customers in and drive more people to become more often? Yes, it makes the product more sticky. It makes the product more interesting. And for you people that wear these things, you will do silly stuff to achieve a level. It's the natural gamification of who we are. It's the world we live in. We like things to be gamified. It's more fun to play and to participate and to interact if there's some kind of gamification to it. Can companies who do not give customers an added experience of their products survive in today's economy? No. Added experience, added value, added anything. If it's not over and above what your competition is doing, you will not survive. All right. Team Nadella. With the holistic approach to marketing, do you think having a background in another field not related to marketing is a bonus for an employee? Yes. I really do. As a matter of fact, many of my marketing students have been out for 3 to 5 years, are trying to get to that next level. And that next level they're not getting to because a finance person is taking their job. Because the finance person has that more rigorous analysis and analytics compared to a lot of marketing training they might have had. Some of my undergrads right now, some of my strongest undergrads are all double majors. And they're either marketing finance or they're marketing IT. I have some marketing sport management ones as well. I have some marketing entrepreneurships as well. But marketing finance and marketing IT, I have some leadership students that are triple majors too. They're marketing, finance, IT, triple major. Zach was one of them. He got hired by IBM. You know. Do you think the holistic approach will affect how marketing data is gathered and used? You think this holistic approach? Let's take the word marketing out and just call it data, marketplace, consumer, or what you want data. And if we do have, we're in agreement here. I don't know what kind of question. Okay. I think the strategies should be used from the start since they've already proven. You think these? What are some of the ways that startup companies can promote this kind of strategy yet doesn't have a regional management to delete? Okay. Let's just say that it's easier for a startup company to do this because they have less employees, they have less functional levels, they don't have to worry about don't worry about deleting the regional management or like that. Many times it's the smart company that's smaller and more nimble and more responsive to customers is the one that becomes a bigger company. You know, you think about Microsoft's rise, you think about Google's rise, you think about Facebook's rise. None of these companies were first, but they were better. Do you think it would be easier for a startup company to start this way, or a traditional method would be more feasible as a fix? No. I understand you guys asking this same question in multiple different ways, okay? And you guys now know that I'm more focused on MO than I am on the process of getting one versus the other, traditional versus old, or any of these other things. Startup companies tend to be more MO from the get-go. It's how they survive. It's the only way they can survive. Do you know of any articles that relate to this, like Smart Squad Company? Sure. I have a million podcasts. Listen to Guy Raz, How I Built This. And every one of them has a very similar story. Find any interview with the Warby Parker guys or the guys that created Instagram. You know? Get Reid Hoffman's podcast. Masters of Scale. Masters of Scale and How I Built This and Stanford's Entrepreneurial Thought Leaders. The answer is yes, and you'll get all of this more than you could listen to in the next 5 years. Today's business landscape, yes. Out of the 5 factors, which is most important to drive marketing effectiveness for a company? It's the data. I know the article talks about these 5 specific factors. It's not marketing, it's market data. In addition to 3 new marketing roles listed, do you believe that more roles will be developed in the future, or there'll be just some current roles that will be left out of this article? They're not marketing roles. That's my problem with the article. Okay. We're going to see in an article at the end of the semester the chief information, the instead of CMO, it's the chief CMI. Okay, Chief Marketing Information, they're trying to mash up those things. I like the concept. I don't think it goes far enough because I don't like the silos. Okay? I think everyone should do the marketing, and I think everyone should do the finance, and I think everyone should do the operations. Not just a couple of silos that kind of meld. Okay, a couple more articles and we're all done here. A couple more questions and we're all done. The articles discussed matrix organizations. I like them. Networked organization. I like them. Cross-functional teams. I like them. And tasks. What is the best organizational structure so employees can be SMEs in their own discipline but also could collaborate with the department? So here's the best way to think about this. Matrix organizations or network organization or cross-functional teams, or whatever you want to call them, only work if there is a strategy behind them. Inside-out organizations create matrix organizations for a specific reason. Okay. So if you take the matrix organization and it has the proper goal and strategy, and has the data coming in, the matrix will work. Same thing with network organizations. They will work. Same thing with a flat organization. They will work. Same thing with cross-functional teams. They will work. If the data stream is strong and the strategic goal from above is strong, they will work. Okay? The collaboration will not have to be forced then. It will be needed because the data coming in, marketing, finance, and operations better get together or they're not going to be able to create just product for the marketplace. As purchasing power shifts to millennials, it's already shifted to the millennials, our social media platforms and new websites. What is the best way to successfully conduct a CRM using these platforms to collaborate this data? Okay. The second half of this question, I'm not going to directly answer because we're going to probably do this in the next module. We do SAT, loyalty, and CRM all in the next module. Okay? Are social media platforms the new websites? That's an interesting question. Let's just say websites killed retailing. Traditional retailing, we could say websites killed that. We can say mobile and apps are killing websites. Now, if you want to call those mobile and apps social and digital, I'm okay with that. Because millennials will buy through Instagram, they will buy through Pinterest, they will buy through social and digital. They'll buy through Discover articles in Snap. They'll buy through. Okay? They'll buy through. Now, the CRM is just the back end collecting of this data. And CRM of it in itself is necessary but not sufficient. If you don't have the AI to give the recommendations like Amazon does, or eBay does, or Netflix does, then I don't care how much CRM you have. I don't care how much data you have. If you don't have a sufficient recommendation engine, then CRM in and of itself is not enough. That may sound very general right now, but it won't 2 to 3 modules from now. We're getting there. We're just starting here. Considering the use of bots and malware stuff and malware programs, are social media platforms a safe way to obtain big data? They're not the safest way. They are a way. They are a strong data stream. And Facebook and Twitter and Google, these, and Instagram, these are data collection gold mines. Okay? I know earlier in this video we talked about I have a privacy thing. I have this love-hate relationship with this stuff. From a marketer's perspective, it's beautiful. From the consumer's perspective, it can be scary. And we have to be intelligent to see both sides of this equation. But hell, oh my God, get a social media listening tool. Get Radiant 6, man. Get Trax. Get Sprout Social. Get Social Mention. Get I don't know. There's 27 of them. Get one of these things. Use the API from the social platforms. Let's assume more mature entrenched company transforming from a Christmas tree organization, top down, into a flat organization, bottom up, takes longer to achieve. It could take longer to achieve. Under this assumption, could these companies be at a disadvantage because of their past success and growth? Yes. Yes. Previous success and previous, that can't happen to me. Just look, and you could Google them. It sounds ironic to say it, to Google them. But Steve Ballmer, during the last 6 to 8 years he was the CEO of Microsoft, he was entirely too confident of Microsoft because they were Microsoft and no one could beat Microsoft. What he said about the iPhone, what he said about competition around him in various industries, Google and a simple sharing like you could do with Google Docs completely undercut what Microsoft did. Microsoft, it took him stepping down and getting the new CEO, Nutella, to be able to say, okay, we made mistakes in the past. We screwed up with Nokia. We screwed up with GPS. We screwed up with music players. We kind of screwed up even with gaming a bit. They've had the money to keep the gaming going, and they've had success there, but they haven't made a whole lot of money in gaming. If a company is fat and happy, it's almost like, when do you lose weight to change your life? It's when you have a heart attack and you have no choice. The only way to survive is because you had a near-death experience. Well, if the company doesn't have the financial meltdown or a near-death experience, how does a General Motors change? They don't. So Microsoft wouldn't change because it didn't have to until it had to. All right, last set of questions. How quickly can an organization change its culture? Some can do it very quickly. We've seen corporations change within a 3 to 6 month window because they had to, otherwise they wouldn't survive. Apple historically, when Steve Jobs came back, it wasn't even 9 months. They were 6 to 9 months away from going under and going Chapter 11. In less than a year, they had brand new product and they had cash again. And they were manufacturing tech products here. The iMac, started it all. If they fail initially, is there enough time or do they have the ability to recover? That's usually a function on whether they have the cash to recover. The article discussed underperforming companies and do not invest much in training. They say on average they give employees about a day and a half's worth of training, while overperforming will give 2 days worth. How much training should we do? Oh gosh. Especially since the financial meltdown, companies have gutted HR. No one trains anymore. The argument is, why do I train an employee when they're not going to be here for more than 3 years? It's a slippery slope. So what do? Do we not train them knowing that we're going to lose them? Or do we invest in them afraid that we're going to lose them? Or do we just keep hiring people that already are knowledgeable and trained and have experience? And that's usually the easiest way, and that's what people are doing. Successful companies train. Measuring into less reactive companies train. That's probably the better way to say it. Measuring individuals' brand engagement, as Unilever did, with key performing indicators is a fantastic idea. Yes, it is a fantastic idea. But how does one go about starting and implementing that program into a company? Well, it's easier to do if it comes from the top. And it's easier to convince the top if you already have a data stream and you do a model. So in other words, you can hypothetically say, look, this is the social media data from the last 3 months. Based on this data, we could have did this, this, and this. And it would have cost us this, this, and this. And if we would have did this 3 months ago, we would have been ahead of our competitor who just came out with their product last week. Was that a good idea or not? And hopefully, he or she in leadership will agree with you and will start a data-driven collection to make decisions. And your corporation will decide what key performing indicators, also known as metrics, also known as analytics, you will use that's best for the particular company. Google keeps changing their metrics. Facebook keeps changing their metrics because they keep finding better ways to do what they need to do better. Okay. This was a long video. I apologize. At the same time, we kind of needed to ramp up, and now that we're ramping up, we'll see if we can condense later. Plus, in the future, we only do 3 articles, not 4. Okay? Thank you. We'll chat more. Stop recording.